The summer I turned 12, we rented a chipped wooden shack by the river, and the world pressed in with the warmth and the thick, almost sweet smell of sun-warmed earth. The days lay ahead like a long, loose sheet, ironed flat by heat, and every sound belonged to a little miracle. The soft clack of pebbles under a passing boot, the clatter of a boat being dragged over a rusted ramp, the distant cry of a gull that sounded as if it had learned to say my name in 100 different ways. The river was not a river so much as a living thing then, with moods you could see in the shimmer of the current, and the way the water gathered in the bend and whispered over the reeds. Our family had come for a week, the way one goes to a friend's house and stays a little longer, because the air there makes the breath easier. I remember the sun as a patient teacher, the way it fixed its gaze on my shoulders until I learned to stand a little taller, not out of pride, but because the heat pressed down like a soft, attentive hand. On the second morning, I woke before the others, the room still half-shadowed and smelling faintly of onion from the day before, and the clean soap Grandma kept in her pack of honesty. The window rattled a quiet gossip with the breeze, and the river's breath came in through the pale thread of light that slid beneath the curtains. My sister lay curled on the far bed, a loose strand of hair across her cheek, and the town drifted up from the street, as if the whole place were a child waking slowly from a nap. I slipped outside barefoot, the wood of the porch warm as if it had kept the sun in its grain. That morning we met Mr. Calder, a widower who kept himself to the far end of the lane and spoke in short, careful sentences. He brought a broken boat he'd found at the edge of the shore, a thing with boards weathered white and a bow that had forgotten its own name. He asked if we wanted to help fix it, and my heart leapt as if someone had turned a small key that unlocked a door I hadn't known existed. My father watched, a quiet man who understood that a boy learns to work as much by watching as by doing, and he nodded, a single, soft movement that felt like a blessing. We carried that broken boat to the sandbar and laid it between two driftwood logs. The smell of tar and pine sap rose up with the morning heat, and I could taste copper on my tongue from the river's bite that somehow tasted like rain. Eli, that boy who lived at the edge of the town, with a mouth full of questions and a pocket full of pocketknife shavings, stood next to me. He had a face that could pale the sun with a shy smile. And today his smile was a doorway I didn't know I'd been looking for. "Let's do it right," Eli said, squinting toward the boat, as if the truth of the thing might lie beneath the layers of salt and dust. We pried the boards apart, new nails glinting, and Mr. Calder showed us how to drive them in straight, how to smear tar along the seams so the river wouldn't seep back in to claim the wood again. It was a rhythm, simple and steady. Rinse, dry, measure, cut, glue, press, hold, breathe. The world narrowed to the weight of a hammer in my hand. The scent of pine and resin, the drumming of my pulse in my ears, and the whisper of the river beyond the bank. As we worked, Mrs. Calder, a woman whose hands always smelled of lemon and the soft soap we used at home, a scent that made a child feel safe, brought us lemonade and a basket of bread cut into thick crescents. The bread steamed in the summer warmth and carried the sweet tang of honey through the air. We ate and listened to the river make a patient, maddeningly gentle sound, like a parent tucking a child into bed, a sound that seemed to say, "Be calm, little one. You're almost there." By noon, the boat looked almost whole, its surface a pale apology for the life it had carried before. The hull held a kind of quiet hope, if boats can have hopes, and the job felt larger than any task I had known. I learned to measure twice and cut once from Mr. Calder. To listen for the little change in a plank that told you it was time to set the nail. To wait with your breath held until the glue found its place and you could press with both hands and trust the work would stay. I had never before believed that your worth could be measured in cured wood and careful seams, but it turns out that day taught me precisely that. When we finally slid the raft-like craft into the river's edge and coaxed it into the current with a long rope, something shifted inside me. The boat bobbed a moment and settled, as if granting us permission to go forward. I stood on the bank and watched Eli climb in. Then I followed, my legs shaking a little with a tremor of happiness that felt almost like fear. The fear of discovering that joy could be so simple and so complete all at once. We rode the river for a while, letting the current tug at the stern and listening to the quiet chorus of cicadas that rose from the grasses along the shore. The water slid beneath us, cool and propositional, as if it were trying to teach us a language we could carry into every other room of life. We did not go far, only to a wide, flat pool, where the sun painted the water with gold, and the reeds whispered in a language I couldn't quite translate, but could eerily understand. The boat hummed a soft protest when a small wave slapped against the bow, then settled again, as if it knew I would stay. That afternoon, while our parents talked with the landlady about rent and the more practical troubles of life, the price of fresh eggs, the timetable for the ferry, the way the town's post office smelled faintly of ink and rain, we learned something more fragile and enduring, something that would not chip away with the tide or rust away with time. We learned to share the quiet stubbornness of working for something that might not last forever, and to understand that the point of the work was not the object we fixed, but the space it created between two people who chose to believe in it and in each other. By the end of the week, I could name every corner of the river's mood. The way it wore summer heat like a cloak on a Sunday afternoon. The way it brightened when a cloud slid by and offered shade. The way it grew most honest at dusk when the air cooled and the birds quieted their afternoon gossip. I learned to listen, not just with my ears, but with my hands and my skin, and the tiny creases around my eyes that seemed to wake when the world felt almost too much to bear and too sweet to forget. That memory followed me like a soft, patient tutor through the years. Later, when I stood in kitchens where the stove hissed and the clock clicked with the patient insistence of a metronome, I would think of the river and the way it asked nothing for itself but to be understood. When I stood in a classroom and watched a shy boy smile at the edge of a paragraph I had asked him to read aloud, I thought of Eli and the way he taught me to bow my head toward another person's courage. When I learned to tell a story at a table full of strangers and to listen when someone else breaks the bread, I heard the same sound, the river's soft insistence. You are enough. You are here. You can begin again wherever you are. The summer eventually dimmed into memory, as summers do, and the shack by the river grew to a memory-building, memory-keeping thing inside me. The world changed its face many times, war and peace, engines that roared louder than boats ever did, cities that learnt to wear the night like a cloak. But the simple, patient feeling I found on that riverbank stayed. It grew into the way I measure time now, not by the months or the calendars, but by the moments of steady, quiet giving. A child's hand in mine, a friend's bread shared over a table, a neighbour's words spoken with care. The way to endure, I learned, is to choose small acts of care and to believe that they hold the day together when it trembles. I have learned to listen more than I speak, to let the rooms settle before